Okay, we're going to try round 2 of the Chapter 7 Bone Tissue Lecture audio. I don't know what happened to the first one, but here we go again. So, first thing we need to talk about are the functions of bones. They are support, protection, movement, electrolyte balance, pH balance, and blood formation. So, under support, they literally support you and keep you from being a puddle on the floor. It keeps everything upright and in place. Keeps the organs spaced out where they're supposed to be, all of those things. Protection. You've got certain bones that protect particular organs, like the skull protects the brain, the rib cage protects the heart and the lungs and the upper part of the abdomen, the pelvis protects the bladder and the reproductive organs. So all of those count under number 2, protection. Movement. Muscles attached to the bones, and muscles that are for movement purposes cross over at least one joint. And that's so that when it contracts, when the muscle contracts, it pulls one bone towards the other and you move. You bend your arm, or you bend your leg, or you straighten it out, or you turn your head, or whatever motion is supposed to happen there. But those muscles have to cross over at least one joint in order for that to happen. Electrolyte balance. The skeleton literally stores calcium and phosphorus. It is the Kroger for calcium and phosphorus in the body. Okay? Now, you're supposed to get those things from your food so your body doesn't have to keep zapping your bones for calcium and phosphorus. So if that does happen, does anybody know what conditions might result if your body keeps having to go to the bone for all your calcium and your phosphorus? Think about that for a second. If you said osteoporosis, that's correct. Osteopenia is another option there. That's softened bones. Okay. All right. pH balance. Bone buffers the blood by absorbing and releasing alkali salts. So, like there's one that's called calcium phosphate. And when your blood is too acidic, it'll put calcium phosphate into the blood to buffer it back to be in its normal pH. So the bone can do that too. Blood formation. In red marrow, blood cells are actually formed. And marrow, hopefully you know by now, marrow is the center cavities on long bones. Okay, so that's the functions. Alrighty, osteology is the study of bone. Osteo means bone, ology means study of, so osteology is the study of bone. The skeleton is made up of bone, cartilage, ligaments, and they're all tied together to give you the framework for the body. Alrighty, so bones are classified into different categories depending on what they do, what kind of cartilage there is, stuff like that. So first of all, you have flat bones, long bones, short bones, and irregular bones. And we've got a slide coming up for that, so we'll hang on to that a second. We also have bones classified as axial. That's the darker tan. So you've got the sacrum and the coccyx, the vertebral column, the sternum, the rib cage, and the skull. Those are all part of the axial skeleton. If you think of axial like an axle on a car, everything rotates around that axle, right? Well, in this case, everything rotates around the axis of the body. So the appendages, that's why it's called appendicular skeleton, the appendages come off the axial skeleton and rotate around it. Okay? All right, now, as I said, there are various cartilages and ligaments and things that are also part of the skeletal system. Let's take a look at those. Hyaline cartilage, that's your blue ones. So you see a lot of blue. Wrist, elbow, shoulder, ribs, hips, the larynx into the lungs. You've got some hyaline cartilage there. Ankles. Okay, then you have elastic cartilage, which you see up here the external part of the ear. Okay. Now, the ones that are hard to see are the fibrocartilages. They're between the vertebrae. If you look really closely, you can just barely see them. And then you see this little sliver of red right here in the pubic symphysis. That's fibrocartilage too. Oh, the epiglottis is also elastic cartilage. That's the flap that goes up and down and either covers the trachea when you're trying to swallow or opens the trachea when you're trying to talk. Now, when you try to talk while you're eating, the epiglottis has got a tough job. Should it be up? Should it be down? So, yeah, that's why we shouldn't eat and talk at the same time. All right, so here's that slide I was telling you about. You've got long bones, irregular bones, flat bones, short bones. Okay, so flat bones are very flat, okay? They are made like a little sandwich. They've got hard bone on the outside, spongy bone in the middle, and then hard bone on the inside. So you have a spongy bone sandwich, okay? And you're going to find that in the sternum, the skull, part of the clavicles. Those are going to be your flat bones. Then you've got irregular bones, and they are really irregular. Okay, you've got all these pieces that stick off every which direction. So the vertebrae are a great example of an irregular bone. Short bones are your wrist bones and your ankle bones primarily. Now, this is the part that's confusing. Long bones. Okay, you can understand the humerus, the radius, the ulna, the femur, the fibula, the tibia, but the phalanges, the metacarpals, and the metatarsals are also considered long bones. A long bone just means it's got a skinny shaft and two kind of bulbous ends, okay? And even your teeny tiny little finger bones, your phalanges, even those have this same structure. They're just shorter versions of them. They've got a shaft and two round ends, or roundish ends, okay? So short doesn't mean size. Short is more of a shape thing, okay? So long doesn't mean that it's the length of your arm. Long just means it's long and skinny with two round ends, okay? So don't mess that up. Your hand bones and finger bones, foot bones and toe bones are also long bones. All right, so I think that is it for this lecture. I tried to break them down into little smaller chunks this time. Yep. So we'll move on to section 2.